But I kind of mean like, in Celeste, for instance, you obviously have your dash and you have your wall grab, and then eventually there's like the flying sort of thing you get at some point.
Yep.
Like obviously you
So
wouldn't want to make it so you can do everything, but add in some additional, even if they're like very situational abilities where it's this, you can do this thing in this specific area.
yeah, I think I like the idea of that. So like in the third world that they go to, it's based on the in the first and the second world. There's I don't know if you remember. There's you can switch off these lasers and they're on a
Mm.
timer, and you've got it, and it basically creates a little a speed run section through that. You've got to get through that bit within 6 seconds, otherwise the
Mhm.
laser's going to turn back on and you won't get through. So in the third world, the player jumps onto this moving like sky carriage that's on a cable, but it's obstructed by this area that's under construction. But the carriage has the laser timer off it,
Mm.
so you've got to turn the laser off, get through these sections, and then get back onto the carriage to turn the lasers off again, so you can get through. So the carriage is forever going. So that's kind of the new mechanic in the third world, is
Mm.
that there's no time to stop. Whereas in the
Mm.
first two worlds, you go through these grueling sections, and then you're like, oh my god, checkpoint, thank God. Let me just get the sweat off my palms and then go again. In world 3, it won't stop. You'll be kind of, if the carriage keeps going and you don't keep up with it, you're toast. So, do
Mm.
you know what I mean? So that's
Yeah,
how
yeah,
we
yeah.
creep it up there. But yeah, I do like what you're saying with Celeste, those situational, like even I think there's things that expand her stamina and stuff like that. Like
Mm, mm,
you
mm.
get the little power
Yeah,
up
like
pills
the
to.
the dash resets you can get.
Yeah, yep, yep. We had a little power pill initially in the game, but once we added Kinsey to the playable, once we merged the two players, the need for that was gone, because
Right.
you could just switch out and kind of combo your way through it, like you said, sort of clutch to reset, hover, and then reset back.
Mhm.
So it was funny because that was kind of the things that it changed. Like, if I think in the demo of Renzai on Itch, they are the little power pills, and that he basically could hover infinitely until he touched a wall or the ground again. So
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
yeah, so we took that stuff out because yeah, the adding the second player to the main player was just took us on such a pleasant little tangent that we were like, oh, this has actually kind of made a few things redundant now.
Mhm.
So
A bit ago, you mentioned sort of Jalen noticing things that are sort of important to the game design, but you wouldn't necessarily immediately see it. And I'm assuming you mean things like, oh, buffering jump inputs, where if you jump just before you touch the ground, that should be treated like a jump. Or like coyote time, if you walk off an edge,
yep.
you shouldn't immediately fall off the edge. Things like that, which you can make a platformer without them, but if they're not there, something always feels a little bit off. It feels kind of unfair.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And it was big for us to make sure, because we want to make the game difficult, but we don't want anyone to feel frustrated
Right,
at the
right.
game. And yeah, and it was a big one that he worked on was how the player could come off of the wall.
Mm,
So because part of the strategy later in the game is to like do like a little wall exit, because
mm,
if you jump off the wall, we had to make it so that you could get a decent amount of loft back off of the wall, but we also had to make it that you didn't come too far off the wall, that sort of hopping up one wall didn't feel too laborious, where like you were
mm.
losing too much ground.
Right, right, right.
But a big one was how much, almost, you've got coyote time off of a ledge, but also having that fair amount of coyote time off of a wall where you you don't want to accidentally jump off the wall, because that will send you, if you're in a narrow corridor, that will send you straight into the spikes on the other side, or the acid on the other side, whatever's there. But if you just pop off, and then hit jump,
Mhm,
like you've got that little bit of safety. Or another thing was, if players, like on Kinsey's dash, for example, just making sure that if a player is prone to pressing the direction before they press the dash button by a few frames, the game has you, like it's all good. Like
mm.
that was meant to be a dash, rather than it's just a nothing and the button doesn't respond. Whereas you know, initially when you first put the coding in, it might just be, as long as you're holding dash and you press that direction, it'll go. But you want to make sure that you're covering people that press dash slightly first, press the direction slightly first, or press them both at the same time, to get rid of all of that potential frustration. But also things like how fast, you know, if you jump off of a ledge as Renzai and then you hit the heli, how fast does the upward acceleration push back against his natural gravity? And so sometimes, especially when you get to the acid well, his acceleration upwards is slightly modified because it needs to give more control. But because he's got a shorter timer in the first world, it had to be quicker. Otherwise, that you might jump down and hit a fan and get that loft, but getting that acceleration eats into half of your time. You don't go anywhere. So it felt unforgiving. So it was just a lot of basically making levels and going, all right, this is a level that we should be able to do, and kind of using certain levels, like, you know, at certain increments throughout the first world to be like, okay, if you can pass this level, can you still pass this level? And is there a mechanical imbalance there? And do we need to go back? And what do we change? What ripple effect has that had on some of the easier worlds? We don't want to make it too overpowered. So yeah, so those types of things. And I think we're definitely still in the process of doing that. Especially with, you know, the dash, canceling the dash, and at what point and how quickly Kinsei pulls up from a dash cancel. Those things I think are still in the works. But like I said, watching some like good precision platformers play the Unified at Sage, they seemed like they had a good handle on it. Maybe I test it so much, but I know I'm just not that amazing at platformers. I've got the advantage of I can go into the engine and move my player to the third checkpoint because I'm like, fuck, it's going to take me 45 minutes to get back there. So that was also it was also good to see people handling the players like pretty well, you know what I mean? So, but there's always, you can always sand off the rough edges, so to speak, you know.
Yeah, I think when it's your own game, I've talked about this every single time I have a game dev on. It's actually the case with just all software. When it's your thing and you've used it so many times, it can be really easy to miss the rough edges where you think this makes sense. It plays like it makes sense, but you've done it so many times that it's very easy to just accept the problems as just being there, but you don't acknowledge them.
Yeah.
And having like a new set of eyes on a game, just on any bit of software, I think is a good way to really see the problem. I think I'm going to assume the same thing applies to like cinematography as well. If you've been working on a project for so long, you might not even realize, like, or you might even notice any of the changes you're actually making at this point, and you might over fixate on changes that you make that nobody else is actually going to notice.
Yeah, I think it's definitely more. I think it's definitely a bigger hurdle in game development because, like you say, like we and I think from memory, you and I maybe had spoke about this, the onboarding part of during the Unified, and when we
like
got
the
home,
tutorial,
yeah, when we got home, that threw me because I had definitely made, is over-assumed the right way to put it? I'd overestimated people's ability to just sort of kind of.
Are we good?
Get what we were trying 3 hours.
Okay, wait, sorry, you cut out for a bit. Damn it. Can you just repeat what you were saying there?
Yeah, basically when we got home from Sage, we spent like 3 hours going through and like color coding like the messaging for the, you know how like in the tutorial, you know, like this is intended for this character and so the writing's in red, and this is intended for this character so the writing's in blue. And even since then, we've actually completely taken all of the abilities off until you get to that first tutorial level. But it was so incredible to see, you know, like, you know, like just how literal you have to be with some things and how other things was totally fine to just leave it unsaid, and the mechanics will kind of lead the way. But yes, that was my biggest fear, is that we had gotten so used to playing the game that it was going to feel horrible when people actually played it, and we were just so used to it.
I played a bunch of games at Sage. Your game is the one that started with breaking out of the thing at the start, yes?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a part where I was a little bit confused because it said
Yeah.
the input, so you had to like press an input to break the glass, and then nothing happened. But
Yeah.
it sort of wanted you to keep pressing the input,
He's got to
and
punch the glass 3 times to get out, but we don't say that. Yeah.
right.
Yeah. We didn't change that bit, because I feel like yourself and every other gamer, they're like, okay, I'll do it again. I think at a con, like, it's hard because if you're sitting in your room playing it, the screen vibrates, you hear the sound of the glass crack, the
Mm.
controller shakes, and you kind of feel that, and you can see that there's a crack there.
Did you
It's
have controller
kind of,
vibration when that happens?
yeah, there is. Yep.
Maybe I just didn't notice. Okay.
So yeah, so there are things that, like, in a public environment like that do get a little bit, like the story component of it, like people
Right.
just skip through the text and stuff like that. But yeah, that was one that we debated about a fair bit. You know what I mean? Like, we're
Mm.
like, gamers will probably get like, I'll just press it again, and then you hear the crack and it gets louder, and the crack spreads around the pod, and then you
Mhm.
press it the third time and they finally come out.
I
But yeah, it
think
didn't trip.
I think the main issue is the first press. It it didn't seem like there was much visual indication. I think you
No,
could
there's
do the multiple presses, but like the first time you do it, I think it needs to be kind of really obvious that something happened.
yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I think we'll maybe, like, as we ramp up, it'd be kind of cool if maybe the whole room shakes and maybe
Yeah,
some
some
dust
screen shake.
dust and
Yeah.
particles,
Mm,
yeah,
mm, mm.
come from the ceiling. So yeah, there are things that there are things that you're so torn, do you know what I mean? Because you don't want people to miss things, but you also don't want to patronize gamers when they're like, yeah, we get it, we get it. Like, you don't have to prompt me to do everything, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
I can
so
see why you wouldn't want to have like text there saying press it again, but I think
yeah,
I think having some like visual flair that something's happening, like you were saying, having the particles happen, having a big crack, having it shake, like that, I think is
yeah,
stuff that looks cool and
yeah.
sort of gives the idea that you actually did something, even though you can't see your player character yet.
That Yeah, it does need to have more impact, and that's the opening of the game. So
Mm,
it's only that third smash where it really feels like, you know
mm.
what I mean. So, but yeah, no, they're little things that we'll go back through and add, and yeah, there are so many little things. Our list is the list is long.